almost forgotten about the wildlings. So much had happened since. The children of the forest used dragonglass blades, he said. They'd know where to find obsidian. The children of the forest are all dead, said Mormont. The first men killed half of them with bronze blades, and the Andals finished the job with iron. Why a glass dagger should... The old bear broke off as Craster emerged from between the deer-hide flaps of his door. The wildling smiled, revealing a mouth of brown, rotten teeth. I have a son.
Today we would like to draw some comparisons between the Night King and someone that should be a huge part of the story, but is kind of overlooked and underplayed. Baby Sam, everyone remember that little guy? This is the first video in a series relating to the Long Night and the Endgame that we have been working on getting released before Game of Thrones Season 8 gets underway and proves us wrong. Let's recall, baby Sam was born to Gilly at Craster's Keep, north of the Wall. The Night's Watch party departed from Castle Black, stopped by Craster's to see if they had seen any other rangers or had any strange encounters. This party includes Jon, Sam, and Lord Commander Mormont. Sam meets one of Craster's wives, Gilly, who is largely pregnant, and she asks him to take her away from the keep to protect her baby.
He gives the boys to the gods. Come the white cold he does, and of late it comes more often.
Though Sam wants to take Gilly, Jon reminds him that they cannot at this point, and the party continues to the Fist of the First Men. The group camp at the Fist, waiting for Corin Halfhand and his group to meet them there. That night, Ghost comes to Jon, acting anxious. He leads Jon to a snowdrift and starts digging at it, and Jon helps him, uncovering a buried black cloak, presumably a night watchman's cloak, bundled around several obsidian daggers and arrowheads, and an old horn.
Beneath the dragon glass was an old war horn, made from an aurochs horn and banded in bronze. Jon shook the dirt from inside it, and a stream of arrowheads fell out.
The horn doesn't make any noise when Jon blows it, so he gives it to Sam to see if he can fix it, or just to collect because Sam likes old things. He distributes the obsidian daggers and arrowheads amongst his brothers. Corin Halfhand recruits Jon to range with him further north, and the Night's Watch party is later attacked by others at the Fist. After the group is attacked, Sam travels depressingly slow, with others closely following the remaining stragglers, so Ed and Gren try to get him to keep up. Sam ends up defending them from an attack with a spearhead that Jon had given him and kills a White Walker. A small band of Black brothers make their way back to Craster's Keep, barely surviving, hungry, cold, and afraid. Craster is crass and unsavory, as usual, but with what this group has endured and survived, they are not in the mood for his arrogant wildling tone. These men are seeking food and warmth, and they are in survival mode. Meanwhile, Gilly is giving birth to a new baby. Sam peeks in on it. She has a boy and is immediately in tears and full of anxiety. She sees Sam soon after, and she asks him to help her get out of there before they can hurt her baby. In a quick turn of events, a group of the Black brothers mutiny on Craster and Lord Commander Mormont and murder both of them inside of the keep. There's a small band of loyal brothers, including Gren and Pip, and they leave the keep to hurry back to Castle Black. They urge Sam to go, but Sam is afraid to leave the dying Lord Commander and Gilly. As he lay dying, Lord Commander Mormont urges him to leave the keep before the other brothers kill him or something worse. Sam gets Gilly and the baby, and they leave.
The boys' brothers, Craster's sons. The white cold's rising out there, Crow. I can feel it in my bones. These poor old bones don't lie. They'll be here soon. The sons.
Craster sacrifices his sons to the others in the woods. We are shown this on A Game of Thrones, and a servant of the other takes a baby to the Night King, who touches his cheek and turns the baby to a White Walker. It seems the general consensus is that those transformed babies are the brethren of the Night King, the generals in his army. They are strong and well-trained, different than the decomposing dead army. What we can glean from Season 7, Beyond the Wall, is that when one of those generals is killed, the others he has turned immediately fall dead. Why Craster's sons? What's so special about them? Craster is the bastard son of a Night's Watchman and a woman from White Tree Village, a village north of the Wall. He is sort of an outcast amongst the wildlings for his black blood and his very unsavory personality. His keep is basically in the middle of nowhere, with nothing around it, and he wasn't a productive man other than breeding a lot of sons and daughters. Speaking of, his daughters became his wives, and he had 19 wives, including Gilly. He was a resource for the Night's Watch for information about the happenings in the haunted forest and amongst the wildlings, and Craster worked with the Watch because they would provide him with good weapons or wine or supplies to trade. What can make his blood special then, or his sons? Is this arrangement with the Whites just a way to access a more pure human than the dead and decaying corpses the Night King reanimates? Are the babies a more malleable form to work from? Sam, Gilly, and the new baby escape the keep and make their way north, separated from any of the other black brothers going to the Wall. They meet Coldhands, who rescues them from a group of Whites turned from Sam's Night Watch brothers. Not Pip and Gren. Coldhand escorts them to the entrance of the Night Fort on the northern side of the Wall. They are able to pass through the weirwood gate in the wall, which is guarded by magic. The door is a giant weirwood face, and only brothers of the Night's Watch may pass through its mouth that opens and closes. On the other side, they meet Bran Stark traveling with Hodor, Mira, and Jojen Reed. Bran tells them who he is, and Sam excitedly tells him he should come back to Castle Black and wait for Jon, but Bran is going north. Sam strongly advises against it, but Bran and co. will not be swayed. Sam helps them through the weirwood door and promises Bran he won't tell Jon he saw them. Sam and Gilly and the baby go to Castle Black. Jon eventually returns, and the wildlings later attack the Wall. Stannis Baratheon comes to the Wall to defend the Watch from the wildlings' attack, and he has Melisandre, who loves Kingsblood. Now here's where the book and show differ. In the book, Jon sends Sam, another black brother, Darren, Maester Aemon, Gilly, and the baby to Old Town, but it is not baby Sam. Jon trades Mance Rayder's son with Gilly's son for the trip to protect Mance's son from Melisandre, who dabbles in burning those with king's blood. Gilly has no choice in this and weeps the whole trip to Braavos, and Sam is clueless until Maester Aemon helps him understand.
Gilly nodded, cradling the babe against her breast, her eyes welling full of tears. She's going to weep again, Sam realized. It was more than he could take. His sword belt hung from a peg on the wall, beside the old, cracked horn that Jon had given him.
Darren is super annoyed at her crying. Maester Aemon is too sick to continue on right away, and Darren ends up taking their money and abandoning the group in Braavos. Don't worry, he gets Stark justice for this. In order for them to pay for passage on another ship to Old Town, Sam has to sell everything he owns except his black cloak and the broken old horn from north of the Wall.
The captain wanted Aemon's chain as well, but there Sam had refused. It was a great shame for any maester to surrender his chain, he had explained. Zondo had to go over that part 3 times before Kahuru Mo accepted it. By the time the dealing was done, Sam was down to his boots and blacks and small clothes, and the broken horn Jon Snow had found on the fist of the first men.
Real baby Sam stays at the Wall with Val, who thinks it is her nephew. They live in the Lord Commander's Tower at Castle Black, along with Queen Selyse, Shireen, and Melisandre, who are in nearby quarters.
Each brought a wet nurse to the Wall as well. The Nori woman was 40, with the biggest breasts Jon Snow had ever seen. The Flint girl was 14 and flat-chested as a boy, though she did not lack for milk. Between the two of them, the child Val called Monster seemed to be thriving.
Val even seems especially protective over the baby, as an aunt should be, which shows that she's likely unaware of the baby swap. Val is the only family that baby monster has left since Mance was sacrificed and Dalla died in childbirth.
She seems a sweet girl. You cannot know. I can. You know nothing, Jon Snow. Val seized his arm. I want the monster out of there. Him and his wet nurses. You cannot leave them there in that same tower as the dead girl.
In the show, baby Sam travels to Old Town with Sam and Gilly. They stay together for Sam's training in the Citadel as a family, and after Sam gets fed up with their masterly bullshit and leaves town, he travels up to Winterfell with the little Black Tarly family in tow. Now, if we can imagine where we are at by a mashup, Sam should still have the horn and baby Sam. Now, I would like to divert to a little history lesson, because we know how important history is to our story, and how George likes history to not directly repeat, but rhyme. The Night's King was the 13th Lord Commander on the Wall, not long after the wall was completed. He was said to be a Stark, but he could have been someone else. He met a woman, a cold woman with icy blue eyes that shone like stars, and he gave to her his seed and his soul, and they ruled from the Night Fort for 13 years. They sacrificed to the others. To end the atrocities, the Stark in Winterfell, Brandon the Breaker, and the King beyond the Wall, Joramun, joined together to bring down the Night's King and free the Night's Watch. After it was found out they had been making sacrifices to the others, all record of the Night's King, down to his very name, were destroyed. There are versions of the tale that posit the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch as brother to Brandon Stark the Breaker. It's been speculated he may have been a Flint, Nori, Bolton, or Umber, but old Nan says he was a Stark of Winterfell. If this is true, we can really see a comparison coming together. We have a Night's King figure, a Stark of Winterfell, a brother figure, a king beyond the wall, and a horn. This is a rhyming history lesson unfolding before us. The Horn of Joramun was sought after long and hard by the wildlings under the direction of Mance Rayder. They were seeking it because it was said to bring down the wall. The wildlings are trying to get south of the wall for safety, not for raiding like in the past, but to escape the others and the cold. Ygritte told Jon that Mance dug up 100 graves searching for the horn but never found it. Joramun was the king beyond the wall at the time of the Night's King. Why would he possibly have a horn named after him that could bring down the wall but not use it? What use could that possibly have for them, especially since it seems that Joramun and the Stark of Winterfell had made a peace? We must remember that the wall was relatively new at this point. It was noted that the wall was recently finished, and being only the 13th Lord Commander, one must calculate, and yes, there were calculations, that the wall had only been standing between approximately 65 to 100 years. I think the horn may have been a more symbolic gesture of friendship from Brandon the Breaker to the Wildling King. I do believe there is magic in it, but not to bring down the wall. Why send the horn north of the wall for there to be a potential in the future of it being used to break the wall down? If Joramun was jonesing for the wall to come down, he could have blown it immediately but didn't, so I do not believe that's actually what it's for. I strongly believe there is a weapon or key to the Night King's strength and life force in the broken part of Winterfell. I believe that is where Brandon the Breaker gets his name. The Horn of Joramun is a key to unlocking the broken down area in the crypts, or perhaps unlocking the Kings of Winter from their stony state to defend Winterfell.
The wildling blood is the blood of the first men, the same blood that flows in the veins of the Starks. As to a crown, do you see one?
What better place to keep a horn whose effects break ground in Winterfell than by keeping it with your ally who is going home beyond the wall? In 100 years, if you call it the Horn of Joramun, it would be automatically associated with Joramun the Wildling King, not Winterfell. It has also been called the Horn of Winter, which may associate it back to the King of Winter, Brandon the Breaker, but that also associates it with the Kings of Winter, the stony guardians of the crypts of Winterfell. The horn is likely called Joramun's horn because perhaps Joramun was the person who blew it. We have seen in A Feast for Crows at the King's Moot that when Dragonbinder was blown, the man who blew the horn died. Did Joramun sacrifice himself when the horn was blown? If so, who was the horn given to afterward? Perhaps his son or the next king beyond the wall? But since the king beyond the wall historically hasn't been a patrilineal seat, how would the security of the horn be ensured as time progressed? Let us consider that perhaps Craster is a descendant of Joramun, king beyond the wall. This draws a comparison to a Night's Watch man fathering a child upon a cold woman he saw from the wall, Craster's mother being from White Tree Village, the closest village to the wall, and Castle Black. What if it is Craster's mother that ties him to the others and the sacrifices? What if the horn has passed through the ages through the female line of Joramun? What if Joramun only had daughters to pass the horn to at the time of the Long Night? Could this also lend an explanation to why Craster keeps his daughters as wives, to not muddle the bloodline and to keep the horn with the female lineage? For a real-world comparison, in Judaism, lineage is passed through the mother's line, as this is the only way to verify parentage, dating back to 10 CE, basically the dawn of civilization. The Wildling Society empowers their women as equals, very unlike in the South, where women are subject to the patrilineal hereditary system. Furthermore, Craster's wives were fully invested to this cause. Remember their creepy scene with a gift for the gods? Though Craster treats them, well, crassly and occasionally abusively, he would never ultimately harm them because the females are the necessity. Is this why the North remembers? Is this why Jon Snow knows nothing? Is this why Craster recognizes Jon as a Stark? What if this is why the Wildlings hate Craster for his black blood? Craster was never supposed to have been. We don't know what happened with Craster's mother. She may have become one of his wives for all we know. But we know she attempted to go to the wall at one point to present Craster to his father, and they shooed her away. What if she was too afraid to give up Craster, or was trying to get his father to take him to prevent the others from coming for him? Maybe she didn't have other children, daughters more specifically, to continue the line, so she kept Craster and he took over the family tradition. Again, these are speculations, but not unwarranted. This might explain why the Night's Watch maintains a relationship with Craster. He's not the most pleasant guy to be around, yet the Watch keeps ties despite knowing he sacrifices his sons. There's an intrinsic loyalty between the descendants of Joramun and the Night's Watch because Joramun sacrificed himself to release the Watch from their thraldom by the Night's King and Queen. This would also mean baby Sam at the wall with his Auntie Val is actually the baby with King's blood, being the descendant of Joramun, once again proving that Jon Snow knows nothing. The only unanswered question amongst this would be, why was the horn at the fist wrapped in a Night's Watch cloak with a bunch of dragon glass? I am inclined to think that Coldhands was somehow involved. Coldhands was near Craster's keep. He protected Sam and Gilly and escorted them to the wall after they fled the keep. Coldhands addresses Sam as brother and wears the blacks of the Night's Watch. He has a murder of crows that follow him, and we saw on Game of Thrones he has a connection with the three-eyed raven. So, in the words of Robert, when in doubt, blame Bloodraven. Regardless of whether I am right or wrong with all of this Craster business, we can probably all agree that Bloodraven had a hand in the horn and the dragon glass being at the fist. When Jon finds the bundle, he shows us the cloak has not been buried long.
Good wool, thick, a double weave, damp but not rotted. It could not have been long in the ground, and it was dark. He seized a handful and pulled it close to the torch. Not dark, black.
When Jon blows the horn, it doesn't make any noise, proving it to be broken. So the horn is broken, and the old area of the crypts are broken, both in the era of Brandon the Breaker, King of Winter. Furthermore, I believe the broken part of the crypts is truly the remains of an old Winterfell. Bran tells us in A Game of Thrones,
"The first keep, the oldest part of the castle, a squat, round fortress that was taller than it looked."
And in The World of Ice and Fire we get,
"The first keep." Some take this to mean that it was built by the first men, but Maester Kennett has definitely proved that it could not have existed before the arrival of the Andals, since the first men and the early Andals raised only square towers and keeps. Round towers came sometime later.
Why is this information significant? Well, we are told time and time again that Winterfell was built by Bran the Builder in the age of the First Men, before the Long Night and before the Andals came. If the round, squat fortress of the first keep is the oldest part of Winterfell, this means it was not built until after the Andals came, after the Long Night. We received this passage from Sam twice in the series, shown both in A Feast for Crows from Sam's chapter and A Dance with Dragons from Jon's chapter, emphasizing how important this passage is.
The oldest histories we have were written after the Andals came to Westeros. The first men only left us runes on rocks, so everything we think we know about the Age of Heroes and the Dawn Age and the Long Night comes from accounts set down by the Septons thousands of years later. There are archmaesters at the Citadel who question all of it.
So, what if what was actually broken was the entirety of an old Winterfell? What if the destruction of Winterfell was required to bury the Night King's ultimate weapon? I put forth the Night King is after whatever is under the broken part of Winterfell, not Bran or Jon. These are things that he can plan for. However, baby Sam is a wild card. The Night King has been steadily receiving sacrifices from Craster and putting those babies to use as his generals. What about the one who got away? He didn't plan for that, and we don't know how this can be used to the advantage of the side of the living. Let's do a quick lesson in mythology. A very common presence in mythology and the Wiccan religion is the Horned God. He is the personification of the life force energy in nature, the wilderness, sexuality, hunting, and the life cycle of all living beings. He enforces the balance of the seasons with his own sacrifice and rebirth every year. The Horned God is also called the Lord of Death. He is an under-god and mediator between an unknown supreme deity and the people, and is known for providing comfort and solace to the souls of the dead. He carries the souls of the dead to the underworld. One thing to remember is Samwell Tarly is now the heir to Horn Hill after the death of Randall and Dickon Tarly at the hands of Daenerys and Drogon. Sam has named Gilly's son as his own, making him his heir. Sam is a brother of the Night's Watch and also a maester now, so he has twice forfeited his claim on his family seat. But his son may claim the seat, Samwell Tarly II, Lord of Horn Hill.
These meatballs are inspired by Coldhand's great elk, one of our favorite animals in the series, who assists Sam and Gilly when they are north of the Wall. The recipe is based on the elk meatballs served at the Deschutes Brewery in Oregon. We have so many fond memories of rafting and camping along the Deschutes, so it's really a special place for us. You can find the recipe on their website. Meatballs are super simple. You just get a couple pounds of ground meat, in this case elk, a bunch of eggs, a few cups of breadcrumbs, some dried herbs, some shredded hard cheese, and a little bit of oil, and mix that all together. I used an ice cream scoop to help get a nice uniform shape and baked them for about 20 minutes. the sauce is modified from the original recipe to have a caramelized onion base, but otherwise follows the Deschutes recipe except that I used a spruce tip ale from the Baranof Island Brewery near me. The spruce flavor gave it a wintry, northern vibe and really complemented the rosemary. Add a little brown sugar and melt some butter up in there, and you've got yourself a pretty dreamy little meatball meal. I served these guys with pasta and the rest of the ale, and they were a big hit.
In our next part, we're going to look over further examples that the Winterfell we know and love is not the original structure built by Bran the Builder in the Age of Heroes. We will examine what the Night King is after under the ruins of Old Winterfell in a comparison to Lord of the Rings, one of George's favorite novels, and how it could be unleashed. We will also discuss why the women in this story may be far more important than anyone ever considered. I know we had hinted at a Sansa video this time around, but I felt it was important to get this endgame theory out there now before the end of the show. I honestly don't think we'll get the Horn in action, but it has been set up back in Season 2, so there is the possibility. Sam has been traveling around with Baby Sam and the Horn of Winter this whole time, two of the major weapons in the Great War to come. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you all in the next one.